This past Sunday, my sponsor and I were spending time together reading from the AA Big Book. He was sharing with me some insights about what addiction is and what the solution to addiction is, which is really interesting to me because I haven't had someone explain it to me the way he did. So I thought I'd share it with you. From the literature, he pointed out that addicts have a blind spot. They cannot see the chaos and the destruction that they've created in their own lives and in the lives of others when they face the temptation to act out. My sponsor shared with me that this isn't normal behavior for most people. Most people who experience such chaos and destruction in their lives wouldn't touch, sex or alcohol with a 100-foot pole after they experienced what, an addict does. But for the addict, they've got this blindness that they can't remember in the moment of their temptation all of their history. They can't do it. And therefore, when they take a drink, in essence, they're off to the races. They continue onward and moving forward until finally they end up making such grave mistakes that the chaos wakes them up. And then, once they've been through so much pain and chaos and destruction again, they have this eye-opening, this recognition that they've totally done it again. For alcoholics, they used to wind up in the hospitals. For the sex addict, they find out, that they've got an STD, or that their wife caught them, or a sex partner, reached out to their girlfriend or their wife and told them everything. And in those moments of awakening, shame and guilt just overwhelms them. And then they strive really, really hard to never do it again. And sometimes they get really good sobriety out of such a terrible experience. They can get weeks or months, maybe longer. But the problem is when the temptation comes again, when they haven't dealt with the solution, I'll talk about that in just a second, when they haven't dealt with the solution, they go right back into the blind spot and can go through the cycle many, many, many times. So my sponsor also shared with me a solution out of the AA Big Book, and that solution is a spiritual experience, a spiritual connection with what the AA Big Book calls a higher power. Now, those of you who believe in God, great. Some of you don't believe in God, great. The AA Big Book doesn't define what God is to you, but it specifically states that the people who get better find a connection with their higher power. And my sponsor helped me define a spiritual experience as an attitudinal change strong enough that you don't act out anymore. And that could be a very quick moment, like the flipping on of a light switch. But the AA Big Book talks about how this spiritual experience usually comes over long periods of time. And that's been my experience, is that I've had lots of spiritual experiences over long periods of time that created behavioral change in my life. And my sponsor also mentioned to me, I had a moment where I mentioned, a little bit of anger that came into my life. And I said, it wasn't that big of a deal. And he said, hey, how do you know it's not that big of a deal? Were you connected with your higher power? And I don't believe I was. And he said, well, no matter how big or small it is, when you disconnect from your higher power, it's then that the risk of acting out, in my case sexually, and in the lives of other sex addicts, the probability of acting out goes through the roof, and we never know if we will or not. And if we do, we could go on a bender. And we don't want to do that. So the solution to such a problem as having that spiritual connection. And the epiphany that I had is I can't just have it for a day or 2 days. I need to have it all the time. So I am working to have this spiritual experience with my higher power, how I understand my higher power, all of the time, night and day, awake and asleep. And I'm getting better at that, just being real, but I'm still not perfect at it. I don't think anybody is. But it's progress over perfection. And so we just keep striving towards having that spiritual connection with our higher power all the time. And it's that connection that saves us from addiction. It's not knowledge, it's not counselors, it's not the SA groups, but all of these different factors lead us to the spiritual experience that saves us from our addictions.